Wallace is filling in for Tom today. How you doing back there, JW? Doing all right?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing all right. I wish that if you, at some point, not right this minute, because obviously we got a lot going on, but some point before your day ends today, go onto the YouTube machine and Google Ben Wallace starting lineup intro, because the way that the Detroit Pistons PA guy always said Ben Wallace during the starting lineup, if I had that kind of voice and that kind of soul, I would introduce you with that exact, I would say Justin, obviously, instead of Ben. But the way that Wallace, the way that he used to do that, I would do that for you. But that's all right. We'll find another way to do it. There is a ton of news out there, as we said, guys. I guess we'll start. We've mentioned basketball. We'll get to that just a little bit later. Also, a little bit of baseball news quickly here off the top. I got to source a couple buds on this, including my man Ben McKee from 24/7 Sports. Got this broken just a little bit ago that Garrett Wright, Tennessee's utility man, transfer from Bowling Green, a really fun player, a guy who can catch at a high level, play center field at a high level, is a really good contact hitter, has some pop. He's about a 400 career hitter there at Bowling Green. He will be out for 3 to 6 weeks with a broken hamate bone, which is, if you're a baseball fan, you're familiar with the hamate bone. It's right there in the wrist hand area, and a few players a year in the majors break that thing, either get hit with a pitch or something goes wrong. It's a common baseball injury, and it stinks because I imagine that'll leave him a little bit with some work to do. Going into the season, 3 to 6 weeks, that's going to be cutting it awful close. And Tennessee's got a lot of competition behind the plate and in the outfield. So we'll see if he can get up to speed. But he is a guy that everybody's excited about. And I don't think it's the absolute worst injury in the world, but certainly something to note. And good on our boy Ben McKee, friend of the pod, friend in life, Ben McKee, for breaking that news. Credit where credit is due on that. And also, I believe Eric Kane was in on that news too. So congrats to both those guys. College football playoff championship game tonight. It's big game nacho night at Fort Rucker for the Super Bowl, for the national championship game. If there's like a game 7 in the playoffs, we make what we call our big game nachos, and they are delicious. And I am trying my best to fast all day before we get to that point. So if you hear my belly rumbling during this show, that would be why. Putting it away, waiting to just destroy some nachos tonight. So went ahead and went to the grocery store, got everything ready. Going to cut this show a little bit later, get home, just destroy those nachos. And right now, people are still predicting that Indiana will sort of destroy Miami. They got them as an 8.5-point favorite, although that has gone down a little bit. It was higher. I think I still like Indiana in that game, despite it being in Miami. It's just easier to trust Indiana. They play a more error-free version of the game. Their quarterback, Mendoza, is throwing darts, won the Heisman for a reason. They don't commit a lot of penalties, but Miami's not taking a backseat to anybody athletically, and they are playing technically in their home building, which is just how it goes, right? I mean, if you play in one of those 5 or 6 stadiums where they host one of the big bowl games, there's a chance that you're playing for the national championship in your home field, right? That's just how that goes. But we might be able to talk about that a little bit later, might not, but maybe not. Maybe we might save that for tomorrow, because we got a lot to talk about with basketball. And first, we got a lot to talk about with the portal. Tennessee, as of now, we said going into the weekend, we thought Tennessee had, I think, 11 or 12 commitments, depending on how you view a walk-on there out of the portal. We said going to have a big weekend. Said they're going to add more. And by golly, Tennessee did add more. Right now it stands up to 27 out, but 18 in. The Vols had a touchdown and an extra points worth of additions over the weekend, 7 of them. And among that group, I do not believe that is including Arion Carter, who we talked about this. There's a lot going on with this story. But at the end of the day, Tennessee's All-SEC senior to be linebacker is coming back, and that is big news for Tennessee. It's kind of one of those things where all's well that ends well, in that you certainly didn't want things to go the way they went to reach the end point there, But in the end, they got to what I think we could all agree is a really good place and really fortuitous for Tennessee. The backstory here is Arion Carter, really good player. He played through an injury this year, turf toe, at times that kind of made him a little bit less effective. But if you go back and look early in the season, it's one of the best linebackers in college football, flying around, hitting people, making plays. We all know how smart he is, the character there. He's a big-time player and always has been. He decides he's going to declare for the draft, which at the time I said that's what I would do if I were him, because I think the film would speak for itself. And he was going to be drafted, but when he got the grade from the NFL, it was not as high as he wanted it to be. And at that point, he's got a decision to make. But by that point, remember, Arion Carter declared for the draft, opted out of the bowl game, and then Tennessee went hunting in the portal. And Tennessee went and got an all Big Ten linebacker from Penn State. Really good player. And in that time, Tennessee re-signs leading tackler Edwin Spillman, who comes back, a linebacker. Jeremiah Telander decides to come back. Jaden Perlotti decides to come back. You've got a couple young linebackers in the program that are coming back. You got a couple more that you're adding in. And then Arion Carter says, wait, I didn't like this grade that I got, so I'm going to come back to school. And Tennessee, for a second there, you're going, well, this is awkward because, buddy, we kind of replaced you. Like, we love you, but we kind of had moved on a little bit. We got a new coordinator coming in. He's bringing in some guys he knows. So you're kind of sitting there like one of those parties where you're like, this is awkward. This is awkward. Somebody's ex just showed up. Everybody's sitting around the party going, do we just act like this isn't happening? Do we act like this is not there? Let's just talk about the weather. You seen a good movie lately? Hey, what do you want for Christmas? How are your kids doing? Like, you think of anything you can, any kind of small talk to avoid that awkwardness at the party. Because you wonder, do they have room? Because some of these guys, I think, and I'm not going to speak for them, but I think some of these guys either committed to Tennessee out of the portal or decided to stay at Tennessee with the assumption that Arion Carter was deuces. Because you think about it with linebackers now, everything has changed at that position like things in football change all the time. Whether you play a 4-3 or a 3-4, I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but you're almost always in nickel now. You're almost always in nickel. And so do you go like a 3-3-5, a 3-3-5 stack? Do you go 4-2-5, mix it up? But you're playing most snaps with two linebackers on the field. So let's just stretch out here. The names I just mentioned, 5 or 6 guys who kind of need to play. They kind of need to play. And if you got 2 spots there, I mean, you know, this is just the business of the sport, is that Tennessee had to protect itself, had to move on. But then Arion Carter decides maybe he could come back to Tennessee after all. And if Arion Carter's there, I got to tell you, he's rarely coming off the field because he's probably the closest thing you have to a full team captain. He's a leader. I don't think he's ever been late anywhere in his life. Gets good grades, active in the community, just across the board. Everybody wanted him out of high school for a reason. And the character he played, including the Alabama game, which may have been honestly the worst game he's ever played, but then you find out why. He's playing with an injury. He's playing through turf toe. So when you say that whole my all for Tennessee thing, you're like, oh, well, he opted out of the bowl game. Well, yeah, but he also played about 3 games when most guys wouldn't. And was that the smart decision? I don't know. At times, he went from being one of the best linebackers in the country to a couple times during those weeks, you're like, I don't know if he's good enough to be out there right now. But he wanted to be out there, and his team wanted him out there, and his coaches wanted him out there. That tells you about the character. And if a guy in that situation decides he's going to come back and you might have to go to the portal, that's one of those deals where no, maybe if he goes to like an Alabama or something or Georgia, that's stretching it. But that guy was going to be a VFL almost no matter what he did. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was like basically captain of a team or co-captain at the lowest, and was going to go pro, and then got kind of tossed back into the cement mixer. So I'm glad that worked out the way it did, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Simpson cat, Ty Simpson down in Alabama, who probably will make less money in the NFL next year than he would have made if he'd come back to school somewhere else. But he said he was a captain at Alabama, and at the end of the day, he just couldn't go play somewhere else because it would cheapen what he did in Tuscaloosa, which, say what you will, that's a Tennessee kid that Tennessee wanted. So I understand if you're a Tennessee fan, you're not going to want to give him flowers. But in this era of college football and the way things are going, if on one hand you're going to sit here and not like that all these guys are transferring every year and going to the highest bidder and yada, yada, I don't know how you don't, on that other hand, go ahead and give credit to a kid like Simpson for doing that. That to me is impressive. And Arion Carter ends up doing the same thing. I don't know what the terms are financially for him coming back to Tennessee. I can tell you this, it ain't cheap. And I don't know that it was going to be the highest bidder. I don't know that. With the kind of money people are throwing around and this late in the portal where guys can't go into the portal now and guys are desperately trying to fill those final few spots, I bet he would have gone for a pretty penny. I mean, that's an all-SEC linebacker. Those aren't always easy to find, right? And a guy who's played a lot of college football, been a captain on his team, been a leader. But now if you're Tennessee, I mean, this has worked out on paper about as well as it could have. But there's no such thing as a free lunch here. Every deal you make has consequences. And every decision you make, every move you make, right? Every move you make, they'll be watching you, and it counts. There's consequences. And now Tennessee's got pretty talented linebacker room, an experienced linebacker room, and a bunch of guys who I think are probably going to be good enough to play. Now, maybe this works out where there's a way they can mix and match. They can maybe spend some more time in base if they can trust a linebacker to cover some guys, which, again, I don't know if you can, but maybe they try to find a way to do that. Maybe they, I don't know what they do there, but I can tell you this. At linebacker and in the secondary, they got numbers now. They have completely redone that secondary. I think you're seeing a couple guys that you know, right? You're seeing, obviously you're seeing Ty Redmond come back, freshman All-America caliber player. Of course, he's coming back, and of course he's going to be in the mix. Of course, good player. Idris Farouk coming back, guy who's played a lot of football at Tennessee now. But there's competition now, I mean, across the board in that secondary. And you got a new coaching staff on that side of the ball across the board with the DBs. You got a new coordinator, you got a new safeties coach, new corners coach. And that competition should be thick. That competition, I mean, that's you would think that with that many numbers, you could find some combination to throw at a board and it sticks. You would think. But, there are no guarantees. But you look at the numbers for Tennessee, and that sort of back 7, back 8, whatever you want to call it with the numbers. That's a lot of players there. And a couple of them have some star power to them. They got some work to do replacing some things defensively. They brought in some guys on the line. We know that. Got a couple guys coming back. Obviously, you bring in Chaz Coleman. That's a headline attraction. But they're rebuilding the back part of that defense. And getting Arion Carter back on top of it, I don't know how you can be upset about that. The only potential problem, and it's a big one, is that when you got a lot of mouths to feed, sometimes all those mouths are a little bit unhappy, right? There's a couple guys that you're going to play a lot, and they're going to be fine. But everybody else, you got guys who are going to be playing 15 reps, and they need to be playing 30. They're going to get 10 reps, and they need 20. You know, and you might have a couple guys who get 5 or 10 reps who really could fairly earn 30 or 40. And you got to manage that situation. And I'll tell you this, the best way to manage it is to win. If you go out there and win, or if you go out there on that side of the ball and you're really, really good, it'll help everybody be a little bit happier. But if you're not playing the way you want to play, you're not putting up the numbers you want, and then you got a bunch of guys who aren't getting the rep numbers they want, I'm doing this long enough to tell you got a problem there. You got a problem there. Now, you got months on the front end to kind of work on this and figure out what's going on, but I'm saying in terms of problems, a good problem to have, by definition, is still a problem, right? It's a concern. It's something you got to worry about. But when you compare it to some of the issues on the offensive side of the ball, at least at quarterback, yeah, it's a good problem to have. I mean, getting a guy like Burks on top of it, former Maryville High School star, getting him to come over from Appalachian State, that's a really good football player. That's a really good football player. Really instinctive football player, makes a lot of plays. I mean, they got a lot of guys there at safety, too, that are going to be banging down the door for playing time. So I'm fascinated to see how this lines up. That's a lot of dudes and a lot of stuff they got to figure out. And we got a lot to still talk about in this show. We got to talk about the quarterback situation, got to talk about offense. Obviously, we're going to talk about basketball too. After that debacle there in the second half against Kentucky, we're going to get to all that. But before we do that, we're going to step away for just a second right here and take a quick break here on 10 at 3. Secret time. You want anything you want to add today for secret time, Justin? You got anything? Got any big plans? Got any big weekend stories? Anything wacky going on in your life?
Nothing currently. No.
Nothing?
Wish I did, but
We're talking about secrets now, if that's what we're doing. I mean, we got a lot going on there. It's I'm not going to say pandemonium, but we got some expenses that are going on now. And, you know, I don't know if y'all know this, but baby's still not cheap. So that's my secret for today, is that I really would like things at my super old house to stop kind of breaking a little bit, because we're having a lot of these at the same time. And, I mean, I asked Justin to come fix it, and he said he couldn't. You would think that, you know, I mean, I don't know, do you have any sort of technical skills, any sort of construction skills at all?
I mean, a little.
My dad's a retired contractor, so I've got some, but, like, I don't touch electrical.
I worked at Home Depot for a couple of years in the hardware section. So,
See, you should be doing. You should be helping this.
I mean, I can handle my own, but I wouldn't say I'm very good at it. It'll get done.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
I mean, it'll get done. Just probably not real well.
That's fine. That's fine. Just take the drip away, man. I don't care.
Okay.
Well, it's too late now because there's somebody in the house fixing it right now as we
That's
speak.
unfortunate. I charge more anyways, so.
If you're charging more than them, buddy, you're in high cotton if you're charging more than them. I'll tell you that much. Are we back from secret time yet? Why not? Welcome back to 3. We are talking about a lot of stuff today. If you missed Secret Time, we were talking a little bit of home construction, and by that I mean home destruction. That's what's going on right now at Fort Rucker. Everything that can go wrong is going wrong. It's a money pit. We got a lot going on. But right now Tennessee's got a lot going on in the portal too, and we've talked a little bit about the defense and what's going on there. At offense, listen, things are where they are now. And unless something kind of wacky happens, which I guess it certainly could in college football these days, it looks like Tennessee is now telling us what the quarterback situation is going to be next year. And it's going to be potentially exciting, at least on the front end. Definitely also concerning on the front end. And then we'll see where it goes. Because right now what's going on is Tennessee has decided they are not going with obviously like a Sam Leavitt type or one of those guys because they didn't get any of them. They did add someone over the weekend, Ryan Staub, a former JUCO guy who was at Colorado for a couple years. He's got a little bit of time left on his eligibility clock. He's not played a lot of football at the Power 4 level, and when he did, it didn't go great. But Colorado wanted him for a reason, and now Tennessee's gone in on him for a reason. I think we talked about this last week, that Tennessee had a couple of choices here. Tennessee could go with an established, proven guy who was going to command a huge salary. It is what it is. Call it a salary because that's what it is. And then kind of see where things go from there. Because you know that you got a couple young guys and they're talented, but hey, this is a win now kind of era. People aren't as willing to sit there and wait for things anymore, and you'd be in the 6 years of coaching staff. You just wouldn't want to have a second year in a row that's more disappointing than you want it, to be. So because of all that, that made option number 2 a little bit more concerning. And option 2 was roll with those freshmen, bring in somebody who has some kind of experience, who's just at least better than your walk-ons, because if things completely go off the rails with the 2 young kids, then you got somebody who's got some Power 4 experience, at least a little bit, and he's played some college football against grown men and done some of these things. So that's the option Tennessee went, and it is obviously a risk. I mean, everything in this world is a risk. Any decision that a college head football coach makes is a risk, right? Any decision an athletic director makes is a risk. Now, if you go hire like a Nick Saban, there's no risk there. You give him the money, you get out of the way, he's going to win you games and championships, right? Compete for championships and win some of them. Anybody else, there's some sort of risk. Even like you take an Urban Meyer or somebody like that, you're going to win a lot, but there's going to be a lot of destruction in the wake when he's gone. That's pretty common now. We've seen that. So anything you do is a risk. Like anybody who sits there and tells you, oh, well, just do it this way, it's easy. It's not. It's not. That's nonsense. Everything you do has a risk. And what Tennessee's doing here is running a risk at the quarterback position, which, hey, if you bet on talent, then in this situation, you'll probably be all right. In the long run, question is, how quickly can you get to that acceptable level before you get to the end level? That's the issue there. How many freshmen go through a season, even redshirt freshmen, go through a season where they just don't make debilitating mistakes, like mistakes that will lose you a football game? And even in this sort of expanded playoff era, you only get a couple of those max, right? And it used to be that you would say, hey, but look, we're building around this freshman. Look how good he's going to be next year, yada, yada. But that doesn't exist now. I mean, it can, but you got to have everybody aligned. You got to have everybody on board. Boosters got to be on board. Players got to be on board. Everybody on the staff's got to be on board. Athletic director's got to be on board, because guess what? Your AD's got to answer to people too. And it's hard. I mean, you talk about now, like, look at what Cignetti's done in Indiana. In 2 years, one of the most impressive coaching jobs I've ever seen in any sport ever. And there are people older than me who are saying the same thing. So I think that puts into perspective just what is going on in Indiana. Now, over the test of time, will this prove to be authentic and everything was on the up and up? I mean, we don't assume anything, but let's just say it is. And then it's one of the most impressive things that we've ever seen in college sports. But even someone in Curt Cignetti's position right now, before going into the national championship game at freaking Indiana, IU Hoosiers football, look at what they've done the past couple of years. Remarkable. Things that I don't think anybody really thought were possible ever at that program. Ever. Guys, you're talking about, until Northwestern passed them this year, like the losingest program in FBS history. The very worst a program could possibly be. Except for Northwestern, which, by the way, is getting a brand new, they've redone their field and their facilities now are unbelievable. So, yeah, everybody's got them now. But in his position right now, Curt Cignetti, who should be just, I'm not saying on easy street, but like, look at what he's doing, man. If you can't sit back a little bit and be like, this is pretty cool, then I don't understand how people can be wired that way. But right now in his position, he's saying he's already concerned about rebuilding for next year because you have to be good every year or you get yourself in trouble. And that's the coach who the past 2 years has done arguably the most impressive thing that college football has ever seen from a coaching perspective, from a program flipping perspective. Unbefreaking-leavable. And he's in this position right now already talking about the concern about getting better for next year, the concern about staying competitive, competing for championships, because if you don't, hey. And so in that perspective, in that world, Tennessee's going to go into a big year with a tough schedule, and the 3 scholarship quarterbacks, unless something changes, are a former 5-star redshirt freshman who's played a tiny bit at the college level, a 5-star true freshman who's not even taken a class in college yet, I don't think. He will have by then, obviously. And then a guy who's transferring from Colorado who came from a JUCO, who's played ball but was not the starter. And it's one thing if you're the backup to like Shedeur Sanders. It's another if you're, and Caden Salter, they've had some good quarterbacks there. So I don't want to completely just throw the guy under a bus. He might come in and be great. Who knows? But that's a lot of pressure to put on a situation that you need to be solid. And that's, hey, I'll say this. Josh Heupel does not usually put bad quarterbacks on the field. If you give the guy credit for anything, and you should give him credit for a lot, he's done so much more good than bad at Tennessee. Not even close. And if you can't admit that, then you and I can't have an honest conversation. I'm willing to listen to criticism because that's part of the deal here, and I think a lot of that criticism is fair. I'm sitting here saying he doesn't want to go out there and have a bad year next year. So you and I probably agree on that much. But if you can't sit here and admit that he's done so much more good than bad and what Tennessee was when he took over to what it's become, hey, tip the cap a little bit. It's a lot more good than bad. A lot. But one of the things that he does really well, he gets quarterbacks ready to go. They don't throw a lot of picks. They're productive. He lets them run as much of the offense as they're capable of running at a high level, whether that's an older guy who he gives free rein or, Nico Iamaleava starting as a redshirt freshman with a lot of talent, and they kind of pare things back a little bit. A couple of options, and then you take off and run because you got the SEC Offensive Player of the Year at running back. You're protecting okay for the most part. And you got a couple other backs who can play. So you know what? Let's just do that. And it got him to the playoff. Joe Milton, the production level he had at Tennessee, miles better than what he had at Michigan. And Hendon Hooker from Virginia Tech to Tennessee, not even the same person. unbelievable difference there. And look at the quarterbacks he coached at Mizzou, at Oklahoma, Heisman guys. Hey, the dude can coach quarterbacks. He can get things ready to go. And if he's going to bet on himself at any position, I would think he'd bet on himself at quarterback. And the fact that Tennessee did not go out there and ridiculously overpay for one of the closest things they could get to a sure thing. Even Sam Levitt's not a sure thing. He's pretty close to it if he's healthy. But none of these guys you look at and you go, that can't miss. It's college football. They can always miss. But the fact that he did not go out there when so many of us, even people like me sitting here who will criticize but tries to keep it above the belt and fair, especially the older I get. You know, you see things from a different perspective. You get a little older, get a little more, I don't know if wise is the right word. I'll never be that. But you don't say as many young and dumb people things. You don't rush to judgment as often because you learn, hey, there's sometimes more to it than you know. But even people like me are sitting here saying, hey, man, you really ought to go get the closest to a big-time quarterback who's an upperclassman, who's a proven thing that you can get, because this is a big year for you, and that's a tough schedule. He's looked at that situation with clear eyes and gone, no, I don't want to overpay for some of these guys, not to that much. I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to overpay. I'm not willing to pay somebody 3 or 4 times what they're worth. And because of that, I'm going to go with these 2 tots, and I'm going to bring in a veteran backup, and we'll make it work. That's the decision that it looks like they've made here. And, hey, if you're going to trust Josh Heupel to do anything, and again, I think there's a lot of things you can trust him to do. One of those things is getting a quarterback ready to play, getting a quarterback ready to run an offense. He's very good at that. He's done it his entire career. So this is not like I would feel more comfortable. This might sound a little weird. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. We'll see. We'll try it on, see if it fits. I think quarterback is the one position on the field more than any other place where the safer you are, the better you feel about the entire situation. It's the most important position on the field. And there's not, especially in this era, there's not a close second. You know, there's places that you really need to be good, like corner, offensive tackle, edge on defense. There's places where you really, really can't be bad. But it's quarterback's top of that list. And especially now, people spread the field. You got to make decisions, RPO stuff. You got to be a threat with your legs, too, unless you're like a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. The game puts a lot on that position. And so you would think that that's the position where you think you have to be the most solid to be successful. And if you look at the playoff this year, that sort of bears out. Look at that situation. A lot of the best quarterbacks, they got there. They got to the playoff. But maybe with a guy like Josh Heupel, that's a tiny bit different because he trusts himself to get the quarterback ready to go. And so you would rather spend that money. Let's go spend that money on Jim Knowles. Let's go spend that money on Chaz Coleman. Let's go spend that money on fixing this secondary. Let's do that. Because I've got enough here on offense. This quarterback's got enough talent. This quarterback room has enough ability. And I've put enough around these guys at receiver, at tight end, up front, even though Lance Hurd's gone. I got faith that I can get these guys ready to go. I'm going to spend that money on defense because I got to get better there. And I being Josh Heupel, I know defense, but that's not my number one thing. So I'm going to go get one of the top defensive minds out there in the country, and I'm going to let him run that defense. And I'll trust myself to get the offense ready to go. And if I can save some money here and put it on Knowles and that staff and Coleman and some of these corners and DBs and safeties, okay. So it's not like there's not a rationale for this. It's not like there's not a it's not like that this is a can't-win situation. I think that we have to try to sit back and be fair about this and try to understand that, Josh Heupel, with his job potentially being at stake, as every coach's job is at stake every single year in this era, but especially going into a big year, I think a little benefit of the doubt for saying, hey, it's your program. And you know what happens to coaches in this era when things don't go right. So run this thing the way you want to run it. Take your money and do what you want with it. Here's how much it is. Spread it out however you want. And the end result's on you. And if he looks at that situation clear-eyed and says, I got to spend that more. I got to spend that money on defense. Then, okay, fair enough. Now, do what you're supposed to do. Do what you've usually done throughout your career. Get a quarterback or quarterbacks ready to roll and put some points on the board, as you usually do. Because now more people know your system. Goalish is coming in at Auburn. And so now defenses are getting another look at a system like this. And so you have to adapt. But he's done that. You have to evolve. He's done that, mostly anyway. And so, hey, it's a risk. And I can sit here and say, I don't know if this is exactly the way I would have done it. But I don't know. I'm not in that position. I can see part of it. I can't see the full picture. I'm not him. And he's decided that that's what he wants to do. So, hey, all right, man. It's your pig, your farm, your call. But, if this bacon doesn't taste good, we got a problem. I think he knows that. Speaking of things that aren't going great, we do have to discuss Tennessee basketball right now. We will get to that. We're slightly, I think, overdue for another commercial break. So we're going to get right to that here and come right back and finish today on 10 at 3. Secret time. I think we're doing all right today. It's a lot to package into one show, to the point where I've got the video of Ament and Gillespie, and I don't think we can get to it because we'll have about 15 minutes or so when we come back. I don't think we can spend about 4 minutes of it playing that. I think we got too much to discuss today. Feels that way anyway.
Hey, I just follow along with your notes. Just do what I'm told.
You haven't seen my notes. They're right here, by the way. They're right here.
I mean, I could have peeked at them. You don't know.
That's true. That's true. I did have to use the restroom earlier, and when I did, I left these exposed, so you could have gone over here and read it, I suppose.
You don't know.
I don't know, but it's just, I think we're going to not play the Sots. I think there's too much going on with that needs to be discussed. When you lose a 17-point lead to Kentucky at home, we got to have some. It's time. It's like the puppy pees on the rug, and that's one thing. But and you choose up your brand new Jordans, and you're like, okay, now we have to have a different conversation. Or it's like your kid. You have a toddler who runs around, screams, and yells at bedtime. That's one thing. But he slaps his mom. Okay, we have a different conversation now. Now we're going to sit down, and you're going to hear a different tone, buddy.
I don't know if I want to hear the scary West tone.
I try my best to avoid it because I don't. Where's that line between I need my kid to be afraid of me, but not too afraid? So it's like a fastball that you can't throw too often, or else it becomes white noise to them, or they become afraid of you, or you got to be very careful. You got to be very careful when you bring out that voice. My dad did a pretty good job of it. He knew when to bring that voice out. He would kind of sit there and he'd be grumbling like a volcano was about to explode. And if you knew when an eruption was about to come, and you usually slowed down real quick because you've seen just a couple of eruptions and you knew. We back? Welcome back to 10 at 3. Welcome on back. We got one more segment here today on January the 19th, 2026, on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, on this CFP National Championship Game Day. Of course, two important things. One, I would argue, significantly more important than the other, but nonetheless two important things because for college football, freaks out there, and there's certainly a lot of those in Knoxville, Tennessee, and East Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee, in the southeastern, can I say that right? Southeastern United States. A lot of people. And this will be the last college football game for a hot minute. So, yeah, it's a big day. Lots going on. We're making championship game, big game nachos at Fort Rucker for a reason this evening. But we are going to have to talk about basketball, and it's not pleasant. Now, I will say it's not like, season on a brink. It's an individual game day debacle. I wouldn't call it a season-wrecking debacle. Now, things like this can turn seasons in a really bad way, so I mean that's possible. But I don't think it's there yet. But there are concerns. Tennessee loses to Kentucky at home, 80-78. One of the nation's longest home winning streaks is done. Speaking of streaks ending, been a few of them. And the last team to beat Tennessee at home was Kentucky, in another game where the Vols were favored. So. Anytime that you have a 17-point lead in the Rick Barnes era, that's got to be the game. And it wasn't. And the way that it happened, anytime you lose a 17-point lead, that's going to be a concern, right? Anytime you lose a 17-point game at home, anytime you lose a 17-point lead at home and lose a game, that's an even bigger concern. But the way it happened was the biggest problem, I think. Because in this era, one of the trade-offs for Tennessee being a team that was not consistently like elite offensively. Sometimes it was very good offensively. A couple years it was very good. It's typically been not bad. People say bad. It's not ever really been bad. It's been average or above average or good most of the time. But not like elite. Not like the level that like the very best in the country do it. That's just a fact. But the trade-off for that has been that a lot of those teams that had that kind of offense did not play the kind of defense that consistently would also compete for championships because their big leads were never safe. And one of the trade-offs is if you're not going to be elite offensively, then you better be, first off, good enough. And secondly, you better be really, really good defensively to the point where if you get a double-digit lead in the second half of a game, it is curtains. And that has been a trade that more often than not has worked out for Tennessee, and it didn't in this game. I'm used to games where Tennessee gets a 10-point lead in that building, it's done. Because they can spread you out, they can slow down a game, they can grind you, they can make it trench warfare, they can make your life miserable to a point where you can't come back. Like you're just physically overwhelmed. You can't do it because they're going to suffocate you. They're going to grind the game into dust. They're going to grind you into dust, and that's the game. And that didn't happen in this game because Tennessee gave up 13 offensive rebounds in the second half. Kentucky came back. It's crazy to think about this. Kentucky was down 17 points in a basketball game at Tennessee. And it came back and won despite having 4 defensive rebounds in the entire second half. Kentucky came back from double digits to beat Tennessee despite Kentucky having 4 defensive rebounds in the second half. That is insane. That's bananas. That should not happen, ever. You get 4 defensive rebounds in a half, like, you can't outscore somebody by like 13 or 14 points and a half doing that. Normally that's about impossible. But when you get 13 offensive rebounds and you don't commit a lot of turnovers, you know what that means? You're putting up a lot of points. Most of your possessions, you're getting points on the board. And that can't happen with a Rick Barnes team at Tennessee. This roster construction does not make that something you can tolerate. The trade-off when you build rosters this way is if you get a big lead, it's done. And listen, we can't sit here and say that you have to give credit to Kentucky, right? Those guys shot about 50% from three. I think they made 6 of their first 8 or something in the second half. They can shoot. They're not as good as they should be with all the money that's been dumped into that team, but they can shoot. They can shoot. And they can drive the ball. They can put up points. And they should not be putting up that many against Tennessee, though. They shouldn't be. The way Tennessee is built, that ball screen defense in the second half, that ain't going to work. Those turnovers down the stretch, that ain't going to work. And I don't want to put the whole thing, I don't want to put too much of it on Jacoby Gillespie, because for 36 minutes, he was the best player on the floor. For 36 minutes of that game, he was the best player on the floor. Now, final 4 minutes were rough. Missing free throws, 3 turnovers in 4 minutes, including the one that flipped the game there late. Just a bad pass that you can't make in that situation. But the way Tennessee just kind of let those final few minutes go down the way they did, you can't. If that keeps happening, then this is going to be a very miserable season. And they do have time to correct this, but they do have to correct this. Because you got to pick a lane here. You got to pick a lane. Either you're going to be that defensively good, which again, without another rim protector like Phillips in there, it is different, but they got guys. And it was always going to be an adjustment defensively without Ziegler and Meshack, one of the best defensive duos defensively in a backcourt in at least the SEC and at least this century. I mean, look at the numbers for them defensively. Their defensive metrics together off the freaking charts. There was only one way to go really defensively for Tennessee this season, and that was down a little bit. But the trade-off was supposed to be they're a little bit better offensively. And I liked the way this roster was put together. I still do. But they have got to take care of the basketball, and they cannot, again, let anything like that second half happen on the glass. If they're not going to go get the ball like that, then the ceiling on this team is much lower than I thought it was. And the floor is also lower than I thought it was. Now, I still am not, I don't think, I'll honestly tell you when it's time to maybe freak out. Now, that's obviously, I'm not going to tell you what to think ever. You think whatever you want. I'll think what I want. Justin thinks what he wants. That's the beauty of what we do here, is that no one's opinion means more than anyone else's. And, I tell you what I think, not what you should think. But I've not reached a point yet where I'm thinking panic mode. Tennessee was 4-4 in SEC play a year ago. Turned out fine. Listen, you just got to be at your best the right time of the year. And if you're going to sit here and be one of these people who complains about Rick Barnes' lack of postseason success, and that matters more than anything else, then you have to let this season play out, including the postseason, before you decide. So I've said from the beginning, and I might be very wrong, but I still think it. This Tennessee team has a chance to be much better at the end of the season than it was going into the season. I think that's the first time in a few years that's been the case because of the circumstances. I still think it. I might be wrong, but I still think it. And do things like Saturday put a wrench in that? Yeah, they do. You're darn right they do. Yeah, you're darn right they do. But if you're going to be someone who complains that the only thing that matters about Rick Barnes is that the lack of postseason success relative to what it should have been, if you're one of those people, then you know what the fair thing to do is until March? Shut your mouth. If you're going to wait until the end of a season and then start complaining about postseason Rick, well, postseason Barnes, well, then save it to the postseason. Save it. Because if you're one of these people who tries to have that both ways, you know what you are? You're not fun. Nobody wants to hear from you. If you're one of those people, I got to tell you, man, the only people who really want to hear from you are the people who love you. Because ain't nobody else want to hear it. You're just one of those people. You kind of, you're Eeyore, You're like a cloud of gas that follows into every room you walk into. You're just not fun. You're not fun as a person, and you want the rest of the world to be lowered to your level because that will make you feel better. I hate to say that, but it's how it is. And you be you, but just know there are consequences for it, and that the rest of us, we know. You think we don't know. We know.
Okay, but some people kind of like Eeyore.
That's fine. But, like, imagine if Eeyore was, like, also had some venom.
Fair point. I don't think they like Eeyore as much then.
Yeah, that would be like, and so, but everybody should be concerned. There's no question about it. If you're not concerned, if you're not a little worried, bro, you're the other side. You're naive. You're naive. You can't, well, I mean, good for you because you're probably a really happy person all the time, and that's good. But you also probably, are like, hey, I'm going to take this piece of gum on the railing and pick it up and chew on it because I'm sure it's fine. And it's not fine. So, yeah, be concerned, but this team, if it takes care of the ball and if it rebounds, I still think, I swear to you, I think there's a top 10 team in there. I really do believe that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. And I'm not afraid to tell you if my mind changes. I'm like, well, everything I just thought, guys, rip that up, throw it away. I keep all these notes for a reason. This is every show we've ever done. I know what I've said. I mean, all of it right there. I don't delete it. It's there. I'll stand by it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if you want to see things through a fair prism that perhaps shades a little bit toward, naive, but I still think fair, is that if Tennessee had won both of those games last week, Tennessee would not learn lessons it needs to learn. Because if you get away with things like that and you win, I don't care if it's Rick Barnes sitting there making you watch film for 4 hours. In the back of your head, you're like, yeah, but we won. Man, look, we weren't even near our best and we won. Sometimes you got to take the L. And if Tennessee, which arguably did not deserve to win the A&M game, great fight back, a lot of grit, give them credit for that. But they led for 79 seconds in regulation, okay? And they still won the game. And there's lessons you can take from that, and one of them is that a game's never over. And then 4 days later, a team leads against you for less than 40 seconds, I think 34 seconds in regulation, and beats you. You obviously did not learn anything because you just proved that a big lead or a lead for an entire game can be worthless. You just proved it on the same floor 4 days ago. And then you didn't learn. So, yes, I think in the big picture, if Tennessee wants to get where it wants to get, it's going to have to learn. It's going to have to lose games like that to learn. Because if you leave the stove on but you don't get burned, you might leave the stove on again. If you go out there and you burn yourself, you'll learn. You should, right? I mean, a couple days ago, 4 days before, you watched somebody burn their hand on it. So you should have learned then. But, hey, I guess you needed to get your hand burned. Okay. Well, guess what? Now your hand's burned. And if you're not going to learn now, you ain't going to learn. Take care of the basketball. Effort on the glass. There's a good team in there. I still think that. And maybe you don't, and that's fine. I still do. But you should be a little embarrassed right now. Just frankly, you should. Now, not enough to where you can't show your head or anything like that, but you ought to be a little embarrassed. So what are you going to do about it? You got a week to sit there and be miserable in practice, and then you go to Tuscaloosa. Good luck with that. And if you turn the ball over there, be a lot worse than this one was. A lot worse. You will get run out of that building. So go in there, take a week, and learn. And we will go take our medicine, and we will be back in 23 hours with a lot more to discuss. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for being out there. Enjoy the game tonight. Be safe if you're on the roads or if you're going out tonight with all those people celebrating the game. And be safe, be good. Happy MLK Junior Day. We'll see you in 23 hours.